On the day that Panathinaikos paid up 3 years of George Baldock's contract after he sadly passed away so that his young family could be looked after, showing true respect does exist in the game of football, Tottenham legend Paul Gascoigne has shot a missile across the bows of Daniel Levy and Spurs as he claims he has been told he has to pay money if he wants to come and watch the club that he performed so incredibly for at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Meanwhile, Inter Milan are rumoured to be looking to sign Guillermo Vicario, and elsewhere, Erling Haaland is making eyes at Barcelona as he's decided La Liga is definitely his next port of call. All this and more on today's episode of Daily Premier League News with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please do press that like button. Please do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber for daily Tottenham Hotspur news and Premier League news from across the board. And also, you can listen to this on the audio platforms, be that Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just go there, type in the Spurred On podcast, and you can find me every single day. But let's get started with something that, once again, I have to say, I feel like it's almost like once a week in which I have to talk to you about something where the optics of what Daniel Levy has decided to do just make Spurs look so bad, and they really harm him once again, just harming himself and harming his reputation, not only within the club and with the fans of the club, but also around football. And that is because Paul Gascoigne, who was my idol growing up, an absolute legend for Tottenham Hotspur in the late 80s and the early 90s. If you're too young to remember Paul Gascoigne, just go and watch the YouTube clips of Paul Gascoigne at Tottenham for England. Before Spurs at Newcastle, we signed him for a British record fee of about, I think, £2.7 million, something like that. He came from Newcastle. He was just the best thing about Spurs during that period of time, and there wasn't a great deal going on at Spurs at that point. Sure, we just got Terry Venables in and we were starting to grow something, and that would lead to winning the FA Cup in 1991, which, do not forget, is the last time that we won any trophy other than the League Cup, 1991. Paul Gascoigne led us there to that final almost single-handedly. When you talk about club legends, and the word legend is bandied about far too easily, Paul Gascoigne almost single-handedly took us not only to that final, but to one season we came third in the league under Venables, and just brought the joy to Spurs at that point. And I would spend most of my days, certainly during the summer holidays, in my back garden trying to recreate the free kick that Paul Gascoigne scored for Tottenham Hotspur against Arsenal at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final. That was the first ever FA Cup semi-final to be played at Wembley, and that was because it was the first time Spurs had been drawn against Arsenal in the semi-final. And the rules back then were, nominally, that the two teams that would face each other in the semi-final of the FA Cup, a ground would be chosen, a neutral ground would be chosen based on their geography. So it would be chosen between where the two clubs are, so that the fans could be, looked after. They wouldn't have to go the full way anyway. They could go just halfway. A far cry from what it's like now, where you'll get, Manchester United playing Manchester City in a semi-final, and both fans have to trek down to Wembley for it, just because the FA want to make money. Well, anyway, in that semi-final in 1991, Paul Gascoigne, in like the first 10 minutes of the game, stuck a free kick past David Seaman from 35 yards. Just one of the great free kicks ever scored at Wembley, ever scored anywhere. And Paul Gascoigne was doing that match after match for Spurs. He was alongside Gary Lineker and Chris Waddle before he moved to Marseille. Paul Gascoigne was just what Tottenham were all about, and he made Tottenham worth watching. He was an unbelievable talent, considering, back then it was pre the days of sports science and eating healthily and stuff like that. Paul Gascoigne had the reputation of eating Mars bars. People would throw Mars bars on the pitch at him. He was known as a big drinker even then. He was a difficult character in terms of his mental health, for sure. But on the pitch was the only place where he felt completely free. And at Spurs, he would just rip the piss out of people. Match after match. Such a talent. And he wasn't built like an athlete by any means, but he had a turn of pace and he had a trick. In fact, he had all the tricks. And like I said, legend is bandied around too much, but Paul Gascoigne was a legend. And the reason I'm telling you all this about Paul Gascoigne, and apologies if you think I'm banging on too much, but he was my idol growing up. I spent all my summers trying to recreate that free kick, and as a result, most of my summers in the bushes behind my goal in the garden, because I would just not be able to recreate that free kick. But he has said that he could not believe it, because when he tried to come and visit Tottenham to watch the team at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Daniel Levy and the club tried to charge him £400 per ticket. And that's why, as a result of this embarrassing decision from the club, he has said that when Spurs play Rangers in the Europa League this season, because Gazza went from Spurs via Lazio to Rangers and had a kind of a second brilliant spell of his career at Rangers. It didn't really work out for him at Lazio. He was too injured. But at Rangers, the Scottish League just suited him down to the ground, and he took the piss out of all the players in Scotland in the same way he did for Spurs. But he says that when Tottenham play Rangers in the Europa League, he will be supporting Rangers, and that is because of the way Tottenham have treated him under Daniel Levy. He said this: "At Rangers, I'm welcomed in every way, whereas at Tottenham, I asked for a couple of tickets and they said that'll be £400 each." I was like, wow, with all I did for that club, I made the right choice in going to Rangers. The fans were fantastic and they love me up there. When they play the Spurs, I'll be a Rangers fan. Maybe the only thing I can think of, just trying to play devil's advocate, is maybe that decision didn't go all the way up to Daniel Levy. But even if that's the case, Daniel Levy has to be from the top, filtering things down, that the legends have to be treated in the correct way. Yes, he gives out some jobs as ambassadors to the likes of, Gary Mabbott, David Howells, Ledley King, of course, the main club ambassador. But they're on annual wages. We're talking about club legends here who cannot work for the club, and they need to be treated the same way. Without those legends, I wouldn't be a Spurs fan. Plenty of people wouldn't be Spurs fans. Paul Gascoigne was one of the main reasons people supported Spurs in 88, 89, up to kind of 92 when he finally left for Lazio. He has to be treated well, and especially Paul Gascoigne, because he struggles so much in his personal life as well. So if he wants the release of coming to watch Spurs at the weekend, we should pay him to come. Pay him to come and talk to some of the younger players. Pay him to come and talk to some of the fans. He's got an insight that few others have. He was the first kind of mega celebrity in this country. His growth in Italia 90 when he played for England and was basically the player of the tournament, that coincided with the growth of tabloid culture, really. And he became the first kind of mega celebrity who was doorstepped, who had his phone hacked. And all these players now who become superstars have to deal with this stuff. So he could give a real insight, and we could support this man. We could help support him, and we should be supporting him in any way we can, rather than trying to charge him to come and see the club play. It's embarrassing. I put it in the title. It's embarrassing. I find it incredibly embarrassing, and maybe I feel more strongly about it than anything else because it's Gazza, and I grew up just idolizing this man. But it's just, again, a terrible piece of optics for the club. Spurs seem to just have a way of putting their foot in it when it comes to what the club looks like on a personal and respectful level. And I started this by talking about, George Baldock and what Panathinaikos have done after his such a sad tragedy of his death. Panathinaikos literally paid up that player's contract for 3 years to help his family. They didn't need to do that. They're not contractually obliged to do that. And Tottenham shouldn't think about ways of earning money from club legends just because, we're not contractually obliged to give him a free ticket. Give him a free ticket. Give him as many free tickets as he wants. Let him come and watch Spurs as much as he wants and utilise him. Utilise his knowledge. I'm just so disappointed. I really am. And yet not surprised. Not surprised. The furlough. All of these things that Daniel Levy has done down the years where he's made a decision clearly based on money, going into the Super League, just all of these decisions. And, I'll say it again, I'm not Daniel Levy out, I'm not ENIC out, I'm not Daniel Levy in, I'm not ENIC in. I just fear of who the next owners will be and whether the club will be run sustainably. But I will criticise Daniel Levy when criticism is due, and everything trickles down from the top. So he is responsible for this. Even if he didn't make the direct decision, even if the phone call wasn't between Paul Gascoigne and Daniel Levy, he is responsible for it. And I'm just gutted about it. And sure, this may look like a 10-minute rant, and it is a bit. but sometimes you've got to, show how you really feel about these things. Anyway, let me know how you feel about it in the comments below. And like I said, if you're too young to have remembered Gaza yourself, go and watch some of those YouTube clips. Go and watch his Rabona penalty for Spurs. It was in a friendly, but it doesn't matter. Go and watch his goal against Arsenal. Go and watch the free kicks he scored against Derby. Go and watch the goals he scored in the cup run in '91, where he just dribbled around everyone, scored miraculous headers, dragged us out of the fire. And go and check that out and let me know in the comments what you thought of it, because he is honestly one of the biggest geniuses we've had at the club. Sure, we've had Modric, we've had Bale, we've had Berbatov, we've had Harry Kane, but Gaza was a mercurial talent, a genuine genius, and we should be protecting him. We should be looking after him. Anyway, on to some transfer rumours for Spurs. According to reports in Italy, Juventus are trailing behind Spurs and Arsenal in the race for the signature of Shakhtar Donetsk's Georgi Sudakov. He's attacking midfielder. We talked about him a little bit in the summer. He's on Spurs' list, and he was expected to move in the summer. However, he stayed at Shakhtar. Nobody hit the money that they wanted for him, and he's continuing to deliver outstanding performances, and that's why he's still on Tottenham's list. Once again, Spurs looking at attacking talent, players with technical ability to get on the ball, who want to be on the ball, who want to make it happen. And on a day where I've ranted about Paul Gascoigne, the more players we can have like that, the better. The more I can see Deki Kulusevski gliding through midfield in a central position with James Maddison playing little twos and threes between each other's triangles. That's what I want as a Spurs fan, to dare is to do. And that's why I loved Gaza so much and why I supported Spurs. Sorry to keep bringing it back, but... just so disappointed with Tottenham at the moment. Meanwhile, also in Italy, Inter Milan rumoured to be interested in signing our keeper, Guillermo Vicario. However, Tottenham only willing to sell if a mind-blowing, that's the quote, offer it comes from Inter for the keeper. What do you think about Vicario? Do you want him to stay? Are you so worried about his ability to come for corners and crosses and to get on the front foot that you would exchange him? And if you wanted to exchange Vicario and bring in another keeper, who would you want to come in? I think Vicario is learning. I think he's improving all the time. I think here the set-piece defending this season from Spurs, all of us, not just Vicario, has improved and will continue to do so as he gets more confident with it. I don't think we'll find a better shot stopper than Vicario. Now, I used to be a goalkeeper, so I'll say this. Shot stopping is, it's the minimum requirement. It is. The ability to command your box is the harder element of goalkeeper, and he's improving at that. But is the improvement coming too slowly for you? And if it is, let me know in the comments. Who would you like to see come in at Spurs if Inter Milan were to take Vicario off our hands? Should say Vicario made his competitive debut for Italy last night. And Destiny Udogie also played and provided an assist, which will be good for his confidence after his disappointing second half against Brighton. And that was as Italy ran out 4-1 winners over Israel. Vicario was picked to play in goal in his home ground where he used to play football in Italy, so it'll be a huge night for him. And Udogie came off the bench and set up Italy's fourth goal. So I'm hopeful that will be really good for the confidence of both those players. Udogie came on in the 73rd minute, so that means he shouldn't be too tired for the weekend when, of course, we've got the huge London derby against West Ham, which not only do we need to win because we lost to them last season, but we need to win to get back to winning ways and make it 6 wins out of 7 rather than the 5 wins out of 6 that we currently have after the 3-2 turnaround against Brighton. It was Destiny's third assist for his nation in just 6 caps and Vicario's third appearance for the club in total. Some other news about Spurs. The 442 magazine have just released their top 100 footballers of the current era, of the current year, certainly. And Sonny, Mickey van der Ven and Pedro Porro have all been placed in the top 100. Porro came in at 64th. He was the top player, and I think that is fully deserved with the way he has played for Spurs under Big Ange Postecoglou, who's really taken like a duck to water to that inverted right-back role. And I said it in yesterday's video, I'll say it again. We need to get him on the ball more in those attacking areas so he can have long shots, so he can get crosses in. He's such a talent. Get him on the ball. The more we can, the better. Van der Ven, like I said, 85th, and Sonny came in at 92nd. 442 magazine said the following about all three players. On Sonny, they said the dip in form that Son Heung-min suffered under Antonio Conte feels a long time ago. Since Ange Postecoglou rocked up at Tottenham, Son has managed to get back to his best form. Harry Kane's departure made him the main man in North London, and the South Korean has taken the responsibility in his stride. And that's the responsibility not just of being the sole striker at times, certainly when Solanke was injured at the start of this season, but also last season when Richarlison was injured as well, but also as the captain and the face of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And we are lucky to have Sonny. And I'll say it again, sign him up to a 10-year, 20-year deal, get him as an ambassador, get him as a coach after he hangs up his boots. What a player, what a man. On Mickey van der Ven, 442 said this: it's no coincidence that Tottenham's 23-24 season suffered when Mickey van der Ven picked up an injury. His searing pace at the back allows Spurs to play a high line and underpins the team's wider tactical approach. His incredible assist against Manchester United in September showed just how good he is with the ball at his feet as well. Easily one of the best young defenders in Europe. Well, you know, I completely agree. Wrap him in cotton wool. Get those hamstrings in ice every single game. Sure, he made half a mistake against Brighton, where he just got a toe end on that cross for their first goal. But these are going to happen. He's a young player. He's growing and he's learning. We're lucky to have him. And I'm very pleased that he's made it into 442's 100 best footballers. And finally, on Pedro Porro, 442 said this: a very modern fullback. And yes, by that we mean he is unbelievably attacking to the extent that his defensive work sometimes leaves a bit to be desired. But there's no faulting Porro's application, and after a difficult start to life at Tottenham, he has become one of the most notable right-backs in the division. At 25 years old, his prime years may still be ahead of him too. Well said, 442 magazine. Again, no surprise that Real Madrid sniffing around Pedro Porro, sniffing around Christian Romero. Great defenders, great with the ball at their feet, great looking forward, good passes, and Porro's got a long shot in him too, and thoroughly deserves his place as the leading Spur in that top 100 footballers of the year that 442 have written. Dejan Kulusevski, was once again creating goals last night as he again captained Sweden to another win in the UEFA Nations League. They beat Estonia 3-0. He's now worn the captain's armband 4 times in a row, and he's currently unbeaten. He claimed his 43rd international cap, and he gave an assist to the very, very highly sought-after Victor Gyökeres in the 66th minute, which was for Sweden's 3rd goal. Well done, Decky Kulusevski. Get on your plane home. Get rested. We need you at the weekend against West Ham. Definitely our player of the season so far. Do you agree? Do you think Kulusevski has been Tottenham's player of the season so far? If not, let me know who in the comments below. But I think Kulusevski deserves a new contract. Get him signed up, because in that 8-10 role, there are few players better than him. I mentioned Mickey van der Ven before. He kept his place in the Dutch national team last night, but actually was moved from left-back to centre-back for the first time. It was his first time playing at centre-back for Holland. Unfortunately, they lost to Germany 1-0 in the Nations League. But the game saw Mickey earning his 10th international cap. However, I do have to tell you that after the game, I think on Dutch television, or maybe German television, former Spurs star Rafa van der Vaart, who is known for his outspoken opinions now, he actually criticised Mickey van der Ven a bit. He said, listen, he's no Virgil van Dijk, because Van Dijk didn't play in the game. Now look, Mickey van der Ven I don't think would claim to be Virgil van Dijk. He's a very different player, and he's much, much younger and less experienced. So Rafa probably just trying to get the headlines a little bit there, but well done Mickey van der Ven for getting another cap for Holland, and hopefully that will add to your confidence too. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the international games, Ben Davies picked up his 90th cap for Wales and again captained Wales to a 1-0 win over Montenegro. Well done. That was the 13th time he's been captain, and he hasn't lost as captain in his last 10 games. Well done, Ben Davies. A true professional. I'm really, really happy that Spurs still have him at the club. I think he's great to have around the squad. Meanwhile, Lucas Bergvall withdrew from the Swedish squad ahead of their match against Estonia. That's because he had a little knock. Now, the injury isn't supposed to be serious, but apparently he's been feeling something for the last few weeks. Apparently he had a sore groin after Spurs' Europa League win against Ferencváros. So that might explain actually why Bergvall did not have the best game against Ferencváros. He's a little bit disappointing, especially when you level him up against Mikey Moore, who was so impressive in that game. So he's come back to London and he's going to have an examination. So hopefully it's just precautionary. I don't want to take any risks with him because I want to see him get as many minutes in the Europa League, certainly, as possible. I really rate Lucas Bergvall. Let me know what you think of him in the comments. He looked amazing in pre-season. I know he's had a bit of a slow start to competitive action for Spurs, but he hasn't had many opportunities. And when he has had those opportunities from the start, one of the games he was taken off after 10 minutes because of Dragoshin's red card. So let's see what Bergvall can do. Let's get him fit first and foremost. Before I go on to some other Premier League transfer news briefly, guys, please do press that like button if you haven't already. Please do subscribe to the channel for daily content, and you can become a member too, only £1 a month. All the details how in the description box below, and it really helps me make this daily content for you. Let's start at Man City, and Barcelona club president João Laporte has claimed that they are prepared to do anything to sign Man City and Norway striker Erling Haaland next year or in 2026. Haaland is known to have a release clause, I think, of around £100 million, and both Real Madrid and Barcelona looking to pick him up. For me, look, I've said it before, I think it's no coincidence that a lot of those Man City players are starting to look towards their next moves, as Pep Guardiola might be. All the rumours coming out yesterday is that Guardiola has been talking to the FA about the England national job, and Man City have offered him a 1-year extension on his deal, which runs out next summer. So let's see what happens. Of course, the 115, the 115 charges, they are thought to kind of be sorted out in that investigation, in that trial towards the end of the season. There will be appeals, but maybe the Rats are looking to leave the sinking ship. Liverpool are interested in defender Loic Bardet as a replacement for Virgil van Dijk, who is now 33. However, Sevilla will not listen to offers below €20 million, which is about £16.7 million for the 24-year-old Frenchman. Well, that sounds like the kind of money that Liverpool would be willing to spend if they had to replace their absolute stalwart captain Virgil van Dijk, who's been so incredible for them. Man United have been closely monitoring Crystal Palace midfielder Eberechi Eze, who of course is on Spurs' list as well. I hope that Tottenham will still be in for him next January or in the summer. But if Man United offer him the kind of wages that they like to pay people, then maybe we'll be blown out of the water. Over to South London, and Barcelona have shown interest in Arsenal's Ghanaian midfielder Thomas Partey as they look to explore players who will be free agents at the end of this season. Of course, Barcelona not sure how they're going to afford Erling Haaland if they're looking for free agents. Over at Chelsea and England defender Ben Chilwell, who I said yesterday was interesting Man United, he's also been linked to a move to Napoli, where Scott McTominay is having such success and Billy Gilmour is doing well. But Premier League sides Fulham, Palace and Ipswich are also interested in Ben Chilwell. Well, I think he's a better player than Fulham, Palace or Ipswich. I think he's been harshly treated at Chelsea, and I think he can get a bigger move than that, and maybe abroad to Napoli is the answer. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. As I said, please do press that like button if you haven't already. Helps me get this video seen by more people, and subscribe to the channel for daily Tottenham Hotspur and Premier League content, and become a member. Only £1 a month. Details in the description box below, but have a great rest of your Tuesday. Cheers.